Before we begin, understand this. What you're about to hear isn't fiction. It's a real-world nightmare hidden in plain sight. Like the video, subscribe, and stay close. Because this story doesn't end where you think it does. The tray hit the concrete floor with a metallic crack that echoed down the cell block. Inmate Marcus Reed had barely taken 2 bites before collapsing beside his bunk. By the time correctional officers reached cell 214, foam clung to the corner of his mouth, and his skin had turned a pale grey under the flickering fluorescent lights of Blackridge State Penitentiary. The prison went into immediate lockdown. Food carts stood abandoned in corridors. Half-eaten meals, lukewarm beans, powdered potatoes, processed meat, sat untouched on steel trays. The kitchen staff, a mix of civilian supervisors and inmate workers, were lined up against the wall as officers swept through the industrial cooking area. Giant steam kettles still hissed. The smell of boiled cabbage and disinfectant hung heavy in the air. Marcus was pronounced dead at a nearby hospital less than an hour later. At first glance, it looked like a medical emergency. But when the coroner reported traces of industrial cleaning solvent in his bloodstream, the narrative shifted from tragedy to something far more sinister. Detective Laura Bennett was assigned to the case. A veteran investigator known for her relentless attention to detail, she understood something most people didn't. Inside prison walls, food isn't just survival. It's currency. It's control. It's power. Blackridge housed over 2,300 inmates. The kitchen served nearly 7,000 meals a day on a budget that barely covered basic nutritional requirements. Portions were measured down to the ounce. Ingredients were sourced from the lowest bidder. Every tray was identical, standardized, regulated, predictable. Which meant contamination wasn't supposed to happen. Bennett started in the kitchen. She examined preparation logs, temperature sheets, sanitation records. Everything appeared routine. Too routine. Then she noticed something strange. The cleaning solvent found in Marcus's system was stored in a locked cabinet, accessible only to 2 civilian supervisors and 1 inmate kitchen orderly named Daniel Kessler, a former accountant serving time for embezzlement. Kessler had been the one plating meals on Marcus's line that afternoon. But here's what made Bennett pause. Marcus had filed 3 formal grievances in the weeks before his death. Complaints about missing commissary funds. Complaints about food portions being skimmed. Complaints naming Kessler directly. When detectives searched Marcus's cell, they found something hidden inside a hollowed-out law book, pages of handwritten notes documenting a black market operation inside the prison kitchen. And at the bottom of the last page, a chilling sentence. They're stealing more than food. By dawn, Blackridge State Penitentiary felt less like a correctional facility and more like a sealed crime scene. Detective Laura Bennett stood inside the prison kitchen, staring at stainless steel counters that gleamed under harsh fluorescent lights. The room looked sterile, controlled, almost clinical. Giant mixers, industrial ovens, and rolling carts were arranged with military precision. On paper, it was a model operation, efficient, compliant, accountable. But Marcus Reed was dead. And someone had turned a meal tray into a weapon. The autopsy confirmed the solvent concentration in Marcus's bloodstream was deliberate. Not an accident. Not cross-contamination. Someone had introduced it into his food shortly before it was served. Bennett zeroed in on the kitchen roster. Over 40 inmate workers rotated through prep stations daily, supervised by 2 civilians. Harold Vance, a 20-year veteran of prison food services, and Melissa Crowley, a dietitian contracted by the state. Both had keys to the chemical storage cabinet. And so did Daniel Kessler. Kessler didn't look like a killer. Soft-spoken. Meticulous. Wire-rimmed glasses perched on a narrow face. He had earned privileges quickly after arriving at Blackridge. First library duty, then clerical work, and eventually, the kitchen. He denied everything. I plated hundreds of trays that day, he told Bennett during questioning. If someone wanted Marcus dead, it wouldn't take a genius to slip something in after it left my station. It was plausible. Food trays moved down a line, portion control, protein, starch, vegetables, before being loaded onto rolling carts and wheeled to housing units. Between the kitchen and cell block C, there were at least 4 points where a tray could be accessed. But Marcus's notes told a deeper story. Inside that hollowed-out law book were records, dates, meal counts, commissary transfers. Marcus believed kitchen workers were shaving portions from trays and selling surplus ingredients on the prison's underground market. Extra meat, extra sugar, even spices, valuable inside walls where flavor was rare. And someone was profiting. Financial audits showed small but consistent discrepancies in food inventory over the past 6 months. Nothing dramatic. Just enough to avoid attention. Until now. Then Bennett uncovered something more troubling. Security footage from the kitchen hallway had a 12-minute gap the afternoon Marcus died. The system didn't malfunction anywhere else. Just that corridor. When she pressed the prison administration for answers, she received resistance instead of cooperation. Equipment fails, Warden Thomas Hale said firmly. Let's not turn a tragedy into a conspiracy. But Bennett had worked enough cases to recognize deflection. Because when technicians finally restored the deleted footage, it revealed something no one expected. The last person to touch Marcus Reed's tray wasn't Daniel Kessler. It was someone wearing a supervisor's badge. The image froze on Bennett's screen. A supervisor's badge clipped to a dark uniform. A gloved hand adjusting a single tray. A subtle movement, almost unnoticeable, before the cart rolled toward cell block C. The timestamp placed it 7 minutes before Marcus Reed collapsed. The badge belonged to Harold Vance. 20 years in prison food services. Clean employment record. No disciplinary history. A man described by colleagues as old-school strict but fair. He had survived riots, staffing shortages, and budget cuts without a single formal complaint. Until now. When Bennett brought Vance in for questioning, he didn't look nervous. He looked offended. I oversee 7,000 meals a day, he said evenly. You think I have time to poison one inmate? The footage showed him pausing at Marcus's tray longer than any other. His explanation. He was correcting portion placement to ensure consistency. But the chemical cabinet log told a different story. The solvent bottle had been checked out briefly that morning, signed electronically under Vance's credentials. Vance claimed routine sanitation. Yet sanitation crews logged no deep clean procedures for that shift. Meanwhile, tension inside Blackridge escalated. Word of Marcus's death spread fast. Inmates refused trays. Meal lines slowed to a crawl. Rumors ignited, food tampering, retaliation, cover-ups. Officers doubled security in the kitchen. Then Daniel Kessler disappeared. Not from the prison, but from his assigned bunk. Count time came and went. His cell was empty. Within minutes, alarms blared. Doors sealed. Housing units locked down. A full internal search began. They found him an hour later inside a storage closet near the laundry wing, bruised and shaken. He claimed 2 masked inmates dragged him there, warning him to keep his mouth shut about the trays. Bennett didn't believe in coincidences. Marcus files grievances against Kessler. Marcus dies. Evidence points toward Vance. Now Kessler is attacked. Someone was trying to redirect the narrative. Digging deeper into commissary records, Bennett uncovered a pattern. Over the past 6 months, specific inmates received unusual commissary credits, always after working kitchen shifts under Vance's supervision. Small payments. Spread across dozens of accounts. Hard to trace. But when aggregated, the total exceeded $42,000. Food inventory shortages matched those transactions almost perfectly. This wasn't just about skimmed portions. It was a coordinated operation. Then forensic results returned from the tray itself. The solvent residue wasn't mixed into the food during cooking. It had been injected directly into the protein serving, through a syringe. Premeditated. Precise. Bennett requested a deeper background check on Harold Vance. That's when she discovered something buried in his past employment file, sealed after an internal investigation at another correctional facility 15 years earlier. An inmate death. Ruled accidental. Food contamination. And the case had been quietly closed. But the most disturbing detail wasn't the similarity. It was the victim's name. Marcus Reed had testified in that investigation as a juvenile witness, before serving time himself years later. Marcus knew something about Vance. And now he was dead. When Detective Laura Bennett reopened the sealed file from 15 years ago, the pattern became impossible to ignore. Different prison. Different state. Same outcome. An inmate collapsed after a meal. Toxic exposure. Ruled accidental due to improper chemical storage. No charges filed. No criminal findings. The food service supervisor at the time? Harold Vance. Back then, Marcus Reed had been a 17-year-old kitchen trainee in a juvenile facility, temporarily transferred to assist during staffing shortages. His statement from that case was brief but unsettling. He reported seeing Vance argue with the deceased inmate over inventory losses and respect. Days later, the inmate was dead. The file noted Marcus as credible but unreliable due to age. Now, 15 years later, Marcus Reed was dead in another kitchen under Vance's supervision. Bennett confronted Vance with the reopened report. For the first time, he hesitated. "You're reaching," he said quietly. "You think I'd carry something like that for 15 years?" But motive doesn't expire. Investigators pulled archived personnel complaints from Blackridge. Over the years, 3 inmates had filed grievances accusing kitchen staff of manipulating portions and redistributing food. 2 transferred facilities shortly after. 1 withdrew his complaint. Marcus hadn't withdrawn his. And according to phone monitoring records, he had contacted a legal aid organization 2 weeks before his death. He planned to expose the operation, inventory skimming, commissary kickbacks, and administrative oversight failures. That exposure would have triggered audits. Audits would have uncovered everything. Forensic analysts reconstructed the final moments in the kitchen. Vance accessed the chemical cabinet using his credentials. He prepared trays along Line C. Surveillance confirmed his proximity. The solvent injection matched the type of syringe used in the kitchen's marinade injector. Equipment logged under his station. When confronted with the full timeline, Vance didn't confess. He unraveled. "You don't understand how this place works," he muttered. "You keep control, or you lose it." Control. Food wasn't just sustenance inside Blackridge. It was leverage. Power over morale. Power over order. Power over men who had little else. The trial lasted 6 weeks. Prosecutors framed it as calculated retaliation, silencing a whistleblower who threatened a profitable scheme. Defense attorneys argued contamination and coincidence. The jury deliberated for 9 hours. Guilty. Harold Vance was sentenced to life imprisonment, the same system he had controlled for decades. But the story didn't end there. An independent audit of Blackridge uncovered widespread mismanagement of food funds, systemic neglect, and years of overlooked complaints. Policies changed. Oversight tightened. Yet inside correctional institutions across the country, the same budget pressures and power structures remain. Marcus Reed's death wasn't just about one poisoned tray. It exposed how something as simple as a meal, something designed to meet basic nutritional standards, can become a weapon when power goes unchecked. And here's the part that lingers. If one man could hide behind routine for 15 years, how many other trays have stories no one ever uncovered? If you think this story was intense, you're not ready for the next one. Hit subscribe so you don't miss it.